Hi, everyone. Welcome to Miami View Women. Happy New Year from all of us here at the team. I'm here today. Miriam, your co-host, is stepping in with my beautiful, amazing co-hostess, Carolina Castillo. And we have an amazing
Hello,
guest for you
Miriam.
today. Hello, hello. Happy New Year.
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New
Happy to be
Year.
here
Sorry,
with our
I
special
was putting it
guest.
on. Happy New Year.
Yes, we have an
No,
amazing
it's
guest
all
today, Yvette
good.
Harris.
I was putting it on my watch party. Sorry. I wasn't paying attention in class today.
That's okay. We keep it casual and cool today at the show.
So many of you are probably wondering where Irela Bagué is. Miriam Dorset is our producer here at the show, and she stepped in as co-host today because Irela Bagué is working on something else currently, and she will be jumping in this year in our show sporadically. So together with Miriam, they're going to be jumping in and out. So I miss you, Irela, but I know you have a lot that you're working on right now. So happy to be here with Yvette Harrison and Miriam.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, we'll be able to announce more details soon about Irela. But in the meantime, I'm really excited to be here and chatting with Yvette and, of course, Carolina, you're an amazing woman. It's been great to see you on the show.
Thank you. And how is everyone feeling today? Because it has been a really tough week. I have to tell you, I feel like this is a safe space together with our viewers. And I have to tell you, I haven't been sleeping much this week with that domestic terrorist attack on our capital this week, which was historic. And our COVID numbers going up to almost 20,000 yesterday. I've been feeling kind of on edge. And I was wondering how you're both feeling. I wanted to check in first before we start.
Yeah, well, thank you, Yvette. Do you want to give a check-in?
Yeah, so I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling optimistic. Whenever tragedy or things happen, I really try to work on pulling out some good, some resolution, and just, making sure that I'm honoring the feeling that I'm having of maybe some anxiety, but just not taking up residence in it. So a lot of conversations with my daughter this week, some things I can explain, some things I can't, so that's always an interesting ride with that. But I have a sense of optimism that, things needed to happen like this for some drastic change to take place. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that it did happen, but I think that we hopefully can roll up our sleeves and really do some hard work, have some hard conversations in terms of how we don't allow this to happen again, and some other things as well. So that's where I am today.
Yeah, and thank you, Carolina, for taking a beat to just ask and check in. I think that's really important for us to continue to check in with people, especially with your friends that are, your strong friends. I've been on a lot of conversations over the last few months with friends, and definitely consider myself a strong woman. And even us strong women, sometimes we need to check in too. So if you're watching out there, call one of your strong friends, call the strongest person because they really might be kind of going through it. It's been a rough time for a lot of people. I'm doing fine, and sometimes you feel guilty saying that a little bit when so many people are struggling right now, but I'm really grateful. I'm blessed. Things are going well for me. I'm kicking it off this new year. I've got an amazing team that's rocking it. We're doing this show. There's been so many blessings in the past year for me. Mm-hmm. And in terms of what happened at the Capitol, I'm not necessarily shocked. I'm a woman of color, a young woman of color who's been living in the United States of America since I was born. So to see something like that, to me, I'm just not like, oh my God, I can't believe that. I mean, it's just like, okay, BAU, right? Business as usual going on. You look at the pictures of the riots or the protests. Look, I even used the language that they put on it, the protests of Black Lives Matter, and the stark differences from the police presence to what we saw there. I mean, I think that pretty much sums everything up that people are fighting for and putting their lives on the line for. Am I grateful as well that there was not as much violence and deaths as we see with Black Lives Matter protests? Of course. I think that that is something that we should not be upset about, that the police didn't get more violent or they didn't pepper spray more people or more people didn't die. Just because they tend to, at Black Lives Matter protests, a lack of violence somewhere doesn't, that's not the goal there. We don't want to just get the police more violent with everybody. It's like, okay, well, at least they're not violent with white people or whatever.
Yeah,
like, okay.
You bring up such a good point, because a lot of the Black Lives Matters and a lot of the Black and brown community have said it's not that we want more shooting, it's that we don't want to be shot ourselves. So just treat us the same as you're treating these, unfortunately, what we saw are white nationalists, these white supremacists, and terrorists. So no, the
tell them what they are.
Protest is not what they are right now, and it's incredible that we're seeing the Washington Post and we're seeing media outlets using the word protesters, and that's not the right word, because they weren't protesters. They were there to against democracy. They were there to overthrow democracy, and it was an attempted coup, which is the truth, and that is what is going on. But I love that you are both expressing this optimism, because there were also some incredible things happening in Georgia. We have our historic Black Senator Raphael Warnock, and our Jewish Senator John Ossoff. And congratulations to them. Congratulations to Stacey Abrams. She wasn't elected governor, but guess what? She turned Georgia blue. So these are things that are historic. These are things that, and we all know that Stacey Abrams did not do that on her own. She had coalitions and a group of powerful Black women in her team as well. So, but she is a leader, and we need to recognize her as that. So, the optimism is there. And at the end of the day, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which is also historic, Indian Jamaican, are in the White House on January 20th. So thank you both for expressing that, because we do have to move forward with hope and optimism and a vision that this will change. This has to change. And what we saw, though we're not surprised, we are, it is a wake-up call to many to change. So now with that, let's get into the nitty-gritty of your accolades and who you are as a Black woman leader in our community. Miriam, take it away.
Yeah, we're so grateful that you took some time to come on the show, Yvette. I mean, your bio is so fantastic. As I read it, I was like, well, we need to have you on the show immediately. We've been lucky enough to get on your radar some way. Harris Public Relations, a powerhouse firm across the eastern United States, and somehow Miami View Woman, you found out about our little show, and you've been sending us some amazing guests, and we're so grateful for you thinking about us. But you, in your own right, are an amazing woman. So we really were excited to have you on today. How has COVID been for you? You're, like Carolina said, you are a mother, you're a single mother, you're also a businesswoman, an entrepreneur. So tell us a little bit about how your experience has been. I mean, we're still in this pandemic, so I think there's a lot of nuggets to be shared from whatever little tips maybe you're using with your daughter for her school learning or whatever.
Right. Well, thank you for having me. And I appreciate all the support that you have lent to me and my company. and my clients. I'm grateful to be here. So, 2020 was an interesting year, as it was, I believe, with everyone. There were some high moments, there were some low moments. Um, but I think that what I really learned, and what I really took away from the entire year was just learning to, reminding myself rather, to operate in, a spirit of gratitude despite the mess. Life doesn't always come in a pretty package with a box and a bow and, bells and whistles. Sometimes it comes and it's pretty messy. So for me, I learned how to really embrace and be grateful for the mess, from the changes that I had to go through with my daughter with, online learning, to going back to school, to pulling her out of school, some of the things that, just transpired between her and, she's a very social young little girl, and it was a little challenging for her, and so we journeyed through that. She was, it was tough. It was tough. But she's got such a great spirit, and we cried about it, we laughed about it, and we gave thanks for the opportunity to make some changes that actually turned out to be really, good for us. So had that not taken place, we might not have made those changes. So I always try to figure out or see the good in everything that happens. And I think that stems a lot from losing my mom at the age of 23, when, somebody had told me she would not be in my life forever. I wouldn't have believed them. To losing my dad 10 days after my daughter was born. It just instilled something in me. I mean, I just don't know what it is. It just gave me a different perspective on how I live my life. And so we're still, huh?
The perseverance, right? And the that will to live for your daughter and to be there for your daughter. And I love that you've mentioned your daughter already in the first 10 minutes.
That's my mini me.
You and I have a lot in common. We're both in the PR world. We're both single mothers of daughters. And how old is your daughter?
She's 12 going on 25.
That's how I feel with mine. Mine's 11. Same thing, same trajectory, going on 25. And, COVID did instill, talking about daughters did instill a sense of like strength. Like you said, we cried, we laughed, the sense of strength. There was a positive thing that came out of COVID. She keeps making art. This is a lady kind of walking in the aisle with her. And it really, in quarantine, it inspired her because she's also an optimist. She's also hopeful like us. And it inspired her a strength and an artistic strength of painting and really showcasing, I guess, her feelings and expressing her feelings through art, right? So like you say, COVID has affected our businesses and our lives, but at the end of the day, I can see how strong you are as a woman, and how optimistic you are, and really finding the good in what's going on and what happened in 2020. So I just wanted to.
If I don't find the good, I might not get out of bed. So I have to. Like that's how I survive. So and it's really important for me to show to her that, things are not always going to be perfect. Things are not always going to be good. There's going to be bad things that happen, but really, and most people that know me, because I've had this quote on my voicemail for like 20 years now. And every time I go to change it, somebody calls me and they go, "Oh my God, I really needed to hear that." So then I keep it for another 5-10 years. But life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And for me, that speaks volumes, because, people can throw punches, things can happen. And really it's all about how you really react to it, how you show up in life, what you do with what happens to you. And that's really how I am intentional about living my life every day and showing that for her so that she can draw her own strength when things don't always go the way that she would like them to go. Sometimes it works. Sometimes, we get up and we try it again the next day.
And part of our job is empowering our daughters and having those tough conversations. Like you mentioned, having conversations that happened this week.
Right.
They're 11, they're 12, but they're not too young they're watching history in the making, and
Absolutely.
they have to be involved some way, somehow. And even though we can't maybe divulge every detail, right, because it's not age appropriate, they understand what is going on in our world. So we're creating leaders.
Yeah, we are. I'm probably a little bit more in the not so age appropriate because there's so many things that she's had to go through. And, for me, I have to tell her about these things like living as a Black girl with natural hair and looking a certain way. We've had those conversations, and at a very young age, when she experienced her first bout of racism and handled it so well. But had I not had that conversation to instill in that in her, it might have gone a different way. So she's, for me, it's really, really important to have those. And I don't always have the answer. And I'm okay with that. Like I don't feel any sense of guilt or, sometimes I don't know what to tell you, and she'll be like, do you know the answer? And I'm like, no, but let me get back to you. Let me try to find it out. Or I might not have the answer because it just might not be a real, clean cut answer to the question that she has. So, and I'm okay with that. I don't feel any guilt.
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation with on Clubhouse earlier, which I think both of you ladies are on Clubhouse as well. And we were talking about students and if students are being equipped today with the skills to change and solve like real world problems. Like, are they being taught this kind of stuff? And I think maybe that's because these parents are starting to really get a peek into like the education that their children are getting, and they're like, well, wait a minute, why are they teaching you this stuff in school? Because they're so in touch having to do the distance learning. We were talking a little bit about how can we support and make changes? What kind of things can we do? One of the things that was brought up there was just like not underestimating our children and our youth.
Absolutely.
I mean, we treat them sometimes with like
kid gloves, and you don't want to. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that was definitely something that happened during the George Floyd, the murder of him, and just all the other racial tension and everything last year. And my daughter's actually been put in a situation where one of her classmates called her, the N-word, and we kind of had to go through that whole situation with the parents. And it really, I think, was an eye-opener for some of the parents that might not have had this conversation with their children, like, of what's acceptable, what's not. I mean, there are some kids that they get it from their parents. I get that. But then there's some parents that shield them and don't have these tough discussions. And if you don't have these tough discussions with your children at a young age, they grow up to be something, other than what you really want them to be. So, for me, those conversations and just keeping the lines of communications open with her friends, parents, and, and just making sure that we also provide the tools to them to be able to communicate and talk about things.
Absolutely. I speak to my daughter about LGBTQ rights. I speak to her about civil rights. I speak to her about the injustices that are happening in the world. And believe it or not, at her young age, she's been sexually harassed by a young boy, and told the wrong thing. And we've had to have those really tough conversations. This might have been like 2 years ago, not even at her age right now, but like 2 years ago. And have that conversation with the school and have that conversation with the teachers. So you're right. Our kids are growing up much faster than what we were exposed to. Also due to social media and, and really the internet. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit, because you are a PR, you are a publicist. So I know that entails, digital marketing, video marketing, and all of that. How has that changed in the PR world for you? What changes have you seen in your career?
Yeah, and just before Yvette, that's a great question, Carolina. But I see we have some people watching, and I just want to remind them that they can totally engage with us. Just type in your comments, and
We
we
have a
will
little
ask
watch
your
party
questions.
going
We'll
on. So
bring
hi
them
to
up
my
on
watch party
stage.
people.
I love it. Yeah, we have Tony and Edwin in the room with us necessarily. So please let us know that you're here. Say hello. But Yvette, please, that's a great question.
Yeah, that is. So last year was very interesting. The land of PR has changed tremendously with social media. But traditional PR is still alive and well. When COVID hit in March, we had a lot of clients that didn't necessarily have any kind of crisis communication statement, for their company or any kind of plan in place to, address all of the changes that were going on. So we spent a great deal of time kind of helping them to create the plan during the crisis, which I told them made no sense at all, but we did it, and the relationship with the media, just being a resource for them, because we had a lot of clients that definitely had a lot of challenges as a result of coronavirus. So just acting as that resource, knowing that things change, being open and receptive to the change, and then when all of the items came about, when George Floyd was murdered, and just the racial injustices, being able to help clients with, what are you going to do? Like, what is your company going to stand for, and what kind of messaging, and what are you committing to doing in terms of support? So that was a very interesting journey for us as well, because there was some pushback. There was some real conversations that we had to have with some of our clients that were kind of on the defense, feeling like that they had done enough in the community, and they had done, we did this, and I said, that's not what it's about. It has nothing to do with you. It's not about you. It's about what's your level of support. What are you going to do differently? How are you going to show up for Black and Brown people? And so that was another phase. And then, the rest of the year, we've just had it's just been interesting, having, and you probably, having to kind of go through the whole political, the election, and trying to get your story in. Should I pitch the story? Maybe now's not the right time. How do I make it so that it's part of the narrative that they're writing about or that they're covering? So we were just kind of like, but we got some great publicity.
Right. So it's a lot of pivoting and being flexible and jumping in a trending story.
Exactly. I mean, there was no rule book. There was no, let's, go to PR 101 class and remind ourselves to do, like, all of that was out the door.
Right, like, flip through. What do I do with political pandemic, racial unrest? Page 17.
Exactly. But we did, we made it happen. We tried to just be a resource to the media. And we also wanted them to cover and make sure that, for us, our company narrative is really about making sure that Black and Brown people have the same fair coverage that other communities have, So we're very committed to making sure that those stories are told, that sometimes get overlooked by the media, or, they might not necessarily have the relationship or the information, but really holding them accountable to make sure that, we understand you have to cover crime. We understand that you have to cover things that are not so great about communities, but we also understand that there are amazing people in Black and Brown communities that deserve to be covered, and great things are happening. So all of that coupled in our not so pretty box last year, that's what we worked on, so.
And also, work is so important. Yeah, I'm going to chime in and give a little plug to our supporters over at Miami's community newspapers, because it was part of their response to last year with putting together some of the shows, including Race to the Top, which I also host with them, and they've established some benchmarks of percentage. I know that might, it's not always about the numbers, but at least it's a place to kind of start. So your work is very important, and I think that a lot of brands have taken it seriously, are responding, and I hope that into 2021 we start to see some more of the results of these actions that they've taken.
And I think something that you touched upon, which I believe is crucial at this time, is to support Black-owned businesses, is to really, be aware and move forward with intention, right? With positive intention. And as we were talking, pivot that mindset of 2019 versus 2020 versus 2021. How is your company going to move forward? And I love that you touched upon that, because it's crucial in the times that we're living, and we're here to support one another. But I believe, Black-owned businesses really deserve a lot.
And not just in February, all throughout the year.
Absolutely.
Because we have some amazing businesses and amazing people behind those businesses, that have quality services, products, and, deserve to have the same amount of support that other businesses have,
100%.
So,
what are some of the, we do only have a few minutes left here, and I had so many more questions for you, Yvette, honestly.
You're going to have to come back, Yvette. You're going to have to come back.
Yes, we would love that. That would be amazing. Do you have any thoughts about women in particular? This is Miami-Dade Women. Of course, we're here to talk about women and highlight women. Do you have any thoughts about challenges facing women today, or what it's like to be a woman in Miami today, or any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming from New York. It's been a little interesting, because I have it twofold. I'm a Black woman. So, I have had my share of, and from both sides, from Black and white men and women, it's been interesting. But I think it's getting better. I think, sometimes I know I have been in meetings where people have tried to kind of shut me out or shut me down or not allow me to speak or, to provide my my feedback or comments. And, I'm a New Yorker, so I'm not going to allow that to happen in a respectful way, but I'm not going to allow that to happen. So I think that, just us standing up and speaking out when those things happen, and when you see somebody else doing something like that and saying something as well, because I've had to have conversations with men, that the way you're speaking to me or the way you're speaking to the women on your staff is not acceptable, or the way that you spoke to that business woman versus the way you spoke to the man is completely different. And sometimes, they're not even aware that they're doing it, so it's important for us to point it out when it's wrong, and to share so that people have an opportunity to change how they're flowing through in life as it relates to that. So, but I think I see it's getting better. It's going to take some time, but it's getting a little bit better from the time when I first moved here in 2004. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that holding people accountable is kind of the word of the season, right? So
Absolutely.
Having these transparent conversations, those genuine conversations, even with women. So because, women, we do have the mean girls that we're not proud of, and having those genuine conversations and holding them accountable. And piggybacking on Miriam's question, what would you tell young ladies right now getting into PR, being a publicist? What would you tell them? And getting into our business. And really,
what I tell young people getting into anything, you have to love what you do. Because if you don't love what you do, you just won't be happy, And I wake up, I love I love what I do. And the day that I wake up and I don't love what I do anymore, I'm going to do something else, and I've already got that kind of planned out. But, what I do tell students, especially English majors, journalism majors, is to read, and I think that the generation nowadays coming, they don't read enough. I used to go to this bookstore on Canal Street and take all of the magazines. This was before the internet was, you could read stuff online. I would take all the magazines off the shelf. I barely had money for a cup of tea. They knew me. I would come in there like twice a week. Sometimes they'd give me some cookies or snacks because they knew that, I was operating on a very small budget. And I would read all of the magazines. I would find out who's writing about who, I would copy the masthead down, who's the editor, who's the publisher, who's this, what's the phone number. Back then, you didn't really have too many email addresses. But I read all of the national newspapers, the Dallas Morning News, the Washington Post. I read, and that is the biggest thing that I tell to young people that want to go into public relations. It's not about reading Twitter. That's not reading. You're not reading Instagram, but you have to really read. You have to read the articles. You need to know who, what does Miriam cover? Like, what's her angle? How do I, what does she like to write about? Reading is the biggest thing.
Investigative reporter. Right?
Exactly.
Be your own investigative reporter.
There's an amount of research and reading you have to do in order to really do your job well. And when you've mastered all the writing and all that kind of stuff, if you're not enjoying it, then you need to do something else. So
love that advice.
Love that too. And I think it's a great kind of drop-off point for the show today. But how can people get in touch with you, Yvette, if they are interested in your services or learning more or just whatever?
So my website is Harris Public Relations, HARRIS, publicrelations.com. I'm on Twitter at Yvette Harris PR, and you can always call me. People always go, "Oh my God, you gave out your phone number." My phone number is so listed that it's been listed for a long time. So it's 786-897-8854. And I look forward to connecting with you. And I appreciate you ladies for having me on. This was great. I got to put on some lipstick on a Friday.
Yes. And Carolina and I were trying a new thing. We're going to hop on Clubhouse after if you want to hop on with us. We're going to do like a Miami View Woman recap after show.
Okay, I will do that.
To have some real talk.
Yeah, I haven't been on Clubhouse today. I'm really trying to balance that.
That's good.
You really stay on there all day, and I don't have all day time to stay on.
Yeah, you've got to really balance it. So if any of the viewers out there catch this or watching later, please, you can hop on Clubhouse with us, join our conversation, or drop a comment in the bottom. If you don't have a Clubhouse invite, we will get you on there. It's a great, amazing
If you have
platform.
an iPhone.
If you have an iPhone, correct.
Not yet.
Exactly. It's iPhone only for now. And Carolina, any last words?
I want to piggyback on Yvette Harris's advice to our young viewers, and which is, lead with passion, lead with love is what I gathered from your advice right now. If it doesn't make you happy, don't do it. If you're not passionate about it, don't do it. So if we all can lead with love and lead with passion, I think we're all off to a great 2021.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for sharing your energy with us, your advice, your optimism. And we really appreciate you being here with us. And we're definitely going to have you on again.
Thank you. Hopefully you didn't hear my dog snoring in the background. I was
like, no, we didn't. Yvette, you're always welcome back anytime. And to all the viewers, make sure to catch us.
Appreciate it.
We will be back here again next week, Friday, at 5 p.m. with an amazing Christina Hernandez joining us as a guest to talk a little bit about the amazing work that she is doing. So tune in with us every single week. Thank you so much.
Yay, happy Friday.